Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I am the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. I'm just looking, it is Monday, May 19th. Oh my, we're buzzing through May. It's been just a wild ride these last few months, hasn't it, with global trade? And as in the newsletter today, you'll see from Global Chamber, the title is called Global Mania. And I was been thinking back on 10 years or so ago when I was thinking, boy, why isn't anybody talking about global? It's like it's so important and nobody's talking about it. That problem is solved. Definitely people are talking about it for all the good and bad reasons. I think ultimately it's good because I'm an optimist and I think that everything provides a gift. And I think the gift we're getting now with all of the tariff information and the geopolitical challenges and just all the general challenges is that more people are aware of global business. There are more shifts going on in terms of sourcing, and that means opportunity. Change is opportunity. And for those people who are aware of these opportunities, they're going to win. They're going to succeed. They're going to prosper. And so that's why I feel very good about what's going on in the world right now. Despite some things I don't like, there are just the conversation around global, having a conversation is a good thing. We have not had this particular Globinar at Global Chamber yet. We've talked about logistics within the framework of other Globinars, but we've not done a logistics Globinar. So the purpose of today is hopefully a kickoff on a monthly basis of discussing what's going on in the logistics world as people ship product here and there, and having people be a keynote on who are experts on dealing with logistics every day so that exporters and others involved with global trade can become more aware, or maybe more appropriately, since all are aware, at least have another source of information so that you can gain connections and also gain hopefully strategic information that helps you grow your business. Jorge Canedo is an expert in this area. As he and I were talking just a moment ago, he was just named as an advisor to the Freight Forwarders Association of Mexico. The reason why he's involved with that and why he's involved in many other groups and why he is a trusted advisor to his clients, and by the way, also part of the Global Chamber Los Angeles Advisory Board, and I think Phoenix as well too, is that he knows logistics. He knows international business. He knows what's going on. He's got the right connections. And so we thought if we're going to kick off a meeting on logistics and where things stand and give an update and be available for questions, who better than Jorge to be able to give us an update and then be available for questions. That's the intended format, that he'll share some information. Then along the way, feel free to raise your hand. And then at the end of whatever he's going to be presenting, then also we'll just open up the floor for any questions by members. And of course, as any Global Chamber meeting, if you're a member, then, besides asking questions, if there's anything else that you need, please let us know. Jorge, did I make any mistakes in the introduction for you? You probably should name your company and do a further clarification of your role and where you're based and who your clients are. And then if you could start by just giving your views about what's going on in the market today, maybe contrasting a bit with how it's been, that would be very helpful.
Glad to do it, Doug. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm really excited to be part of the first episode of this new series, and I'm glad that logistics is becoming an important topic everybody wants to discuss about. Usually we talk about supply chain and logistics when things go wrong. Well, at the end, things are changing. They're not wrong. After COVID, most people, especially CEOs and CFOs and board members, starting to understand and question about how supply chains and logistics work. So that's something that really has helped us to be part of strategic decisions, especially on global networks. Well, my name is Jorge Canedo. I've been in supply chain management for the past 25 years. For the first half of my professional life, I used to work for big Fortune 500 companies like Cargill, Cemex, which is a global cement manufacturer, Vestas for wind energy production, worked in supply chain logistics throughout 12, 14 countries. I lived in Europe, lived in Southeast Asia, obviously Latin America, and sometime in the US. Now I'm heading two companies. The first company is Compass 4PL, which is an integrated logistics services provider for the industrial sector. So we focused on big, large projects, mainly maintenance, MRO, new production lines, plants being shut down and moved to other places. So that's kind of our stuff in Compass. And we also we are heading the Mexican office for T-Force Worldwide, which is a huge conglomerate in Chicago, from Chicago. The holding company is TF5 in Canada. We focused on helping manufacturing plants in Mexico to serve their customers in the US, and also we help them to source products from the world and obviously the US and Canada. So we work day to day on shipments between the US, Mexico, and Canada, and obviously Asia and Europe. I'm based in Phoenix. Right now I'm in Hermosillo in Mexico. This is where our one of our main offices in Mexico is located. We also have an office in Mexico City, and we have a customer service group in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. So there are a lot of things changing. Being in logistics right now, it's quite fun. If you don't like change, if you don't like instability, this is the wrong place to be. So logistics has been always been about change. And our last year meeting with my team in December, I showed them a graph about all the changes we had during the past 25 years. And from Y2K, which most of you remember, all the way to the next change 3 years after that, and then 2 years, and then a year and a half. Now things are changing by the week. So we need to be very open to change, because this is not going to slow down. This is going to get faster. So it's very important to have a very flexible operations model, and to rerun your compliance processes, your costing, everything related to logistics planning. So talking about tariffs, I think for sure you know more about this than me, but you have heard about the pause we have for the universal trade lanes. All these countries that had retaliation tariffs, they all went to 10% as a pause for the next 90 days. I think this is gonna end mid-July, more or less. And China, which is the biggest player in this negotiation, just paused. It's gonna go to 30% tariff until I think the first week of August. That's when the 90 days end up. So far, no deals have been made, only with the UK. There were some tariffs that were established fixed for the UK, and some specific amounts for some commodities. So, for example, only 100,000 cars can be exported to the US and stuff like that. So every country is gonna have a special or specific deal. I don't know how is that gonna be done, because at the end, many trade deals take years in negotiation. So that's something that it's beyond my comprehension. But what is happening right now, it's that since COVID, a lot of companies start to look for different options for the products. Uh, you might remember that there was a tariff imposed in China in the first Trump administration. So after that, a lot of companies start to move to nearshore in Mexico, but they also move to Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, different, especially India also. So all these companies that had different sourcing points, they're still having some kind of problem, but they diversified. There were a lot of companies that moved out of China during COVID and Trump's first administration, but they went back. All these companies are struggling right now. The big number is that inventories are gonna be completely depleted by mid-June, talking about retail markets. So with this pause with China, containers are starting to chip out, but there's a constraint. At the end, you have an X amount of vessels, you have an X amount of containers, you have a lot of empty containers in Long Beach that are not in China. So it's not going to be easy to take back that big gap that was created the past 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going to show you a small graph about this. Can I share my screen? I think I can.
Yep, you can.
Okay. Let me 1 second. Oh my, how can I? Okay, here it is. Okay. I think you can see it. Okay, this is the amount of vessels, the bookings, sorry, bookings in container in TEUs. TEU is 20 equivalent unit. So container volume is measured on the amount of a 20-footer. So if you have a 40-footer is 2 TEU. 1 TEU is 1 20-footer container. So you can see by week the change compare year over year for bookings. So by March, when we a little bit before Liberation Day, everything was more or less business as usual. After Liberation Day, bookings started to drop. There was a small increase here, but it got really complex by the beginning of May. So after the negotiation, we're gonna see a huge spike on this graph, maybe during the week or starting next week. You can start seeing here in week over week how the spike is already showing. So Long Beach Port has been idle for the past 3 weeks. There has been operation, but at the end, the big volume comes from China. It's not there. So you see pictures, you see satellite pictures of the port empty. It's amazing. I saw them in a presentation. I haven't been able to get them. Once I get them, I can share it to you. A lot of blank sailings in China. Blank sailings mean, as you know, container vessels, they move on a specific route. They're not point to point. The vessel is not coming from Shanghai directly to Long Beach and going back. They have routes. They go Osaka, Shanghai, they go down to Hong Kong. Sometimes they go down to, I don't know, Thailand or something like that. Then they go to Long Beach, Manzanillo in Mexico. They go down to, I don't know, Iquique in Chile, and then they go back to Asia. So blank sailings is that in that routing, they omit a specific port. And there has been a lot of blank sailings in China, and that causes to have empties instability. So at the end, you can have the bookings, you can have the vessels, but if you don't have that containers ready to be loaded, it's gonna have a huge problem. That's what happened during COVID. That a lot of containers came into the US, they were emptied, but they were not returning to China to continue. So that's when rates went up to 10,000, 12,000. So we had a huge spike that that doesn't really show in the following graph, but we have the Shanghai Container Freight Index, which is the average of averages of all the rates paid by shippers from Shanghai to LA and Long Beach ports. As you can see, rates were already going down. And once the new administration started to make changes, and especially after Liberation Day, everything went completely down in the graph. We had averages of rates between $12,000, $1,000 more or less. And we have a small spike here. This is for the past week. So now we're looking at rates going from $1,000 to $4,000. And I expect them to go higher because there are no empties available. So at the end, it's gonna, as you know, freight rates is a supply and demand issue. So you have an increased demand for the next 90 days, and there's no supply. So at the end, everything that's going to be to be shipped this week is gonna be imported in the next 25 days. So at the end, not a lot of products gonna be able to move from China into the US in the next 90 days. So the big gap that was created 6 weeks ago, it's just gonna be there. That inventory is not gonna be supplied until you get more vessels. That's not gonna happen in the short term, or there's a decrease in the market demand in the US. With the current conditions, that could happen, but at the end, there's gonna be a gap that was recovered after 18 months of the first COVID blocked we had during March, April, when COVID started to show up. So the problem is not gonna be easily fixed. You have hard constraints, which is vessel and container capacity. Vessel capacity is difficult to ramp up. Container capacity, not so much, but please remember that when this happened during COVID, shipping lines decided to, there's no proof about this. This is something we discuss in the freight forwarding business, but they decided to lower the amount of empties being moved to China because they were making so much money that they wanted to keep rates high. So this could happen again. During this first, I think, 8 months of COVID, shipping lines made the profit they made was the amount of profit if you add up the last 20 years of their business. So for sure, they're looking at a huge opportunity to recover what they lost the last 6 weeks and to make a profit on this, because that gap that was created is going to be recovered little by little in the next coming months. So a lot of people, a lot of companies decided not to wait for a deal and ship out and store in a free trade zone. As you know, in the US, we have two models for bonded storage: free trade zone and bonded warehouse. In a free trade zone is like if you had an extension of a port, of an airport, of a free trade area, where you can make small manufacturing, you can make substantial changes to products, or you can store them indefinitely. They can be stored there until they're no longer usable, or you either import them or re-export them to a different country. And on a bonded warehouse, you can store the products depending on the commodity, but between 2 to 5 years. So there's no flexibility in a bonded warehouse. What comes in must come out. You cannot make any changes. So that's basically the big difference. Free trade zones, even though we have around 290 free trade zones in the US, they're not usually full. A lot of product goes into a free trade zone that gets in bonded. and they're looking for a new market to be re-exported. So for the past 4 weeks, all these companies that already had a warehouse with a free trade zone permit started to increase their prices because the demand is starting to increase, but the infrastructure is limited. So the demand is spiking, and not all companies are going to be able to get access to a space because there are not a lot of available space in the next coming weeks. To start a new free trade zone takes months. There's a lot of red tape in the process. So not everybody was interested in having the permit just in case of. So not now a lot of 3PLs and warehousing companies are looking to evolve into a free trade zone, but I don't see the government moving as fast as it's needed to be able to provide this kind of service. So if you have access to a free trade zone, and you are worried about the prices they're charging you, they're up, they're way expensive, but you need to build your strategy to see if it makes sense to get your product in case of looking to re-export. Before April, I think it was CBP was saying that there was not going to be any kind of drawback on duties. Now they're saying that there's a drawback if you re-export product. But if you get the product in, even though you move it into a free trade zone, you're gonna pay the tariffs that apply to that specific period in time. So if it's 145% or 30%, depending on the date you reach the first custom contact, your first custom point that's the date where you're gonna start where you're gonna get assigned the tariff that applies to you. But even though this seems like a very bad situation, I think there are a lot of opportunities in the near future. The last week we had a meeting with Stefan Graver. Stefan, it's the CEO for FIARA. FIARA is a French, but it's a Worldwide Freight Forwarders Association of Associations. So these guys are in Geneva, in Switzerland, and they're looking at the different behaviors in logistics, especially in global logistics worldwide. So I asked the same question that Doc posted at the beginning of the Globinar, asking, okay, what is the future? I asked Stefan that he talks to people worldwide, he talks to business owners, he talks to governments, he talks to customs authorities, to shipping line owners, to airline owners. What do they see? And basically, the common idea is that most of these companies are not waiting for things to be solved within the US. Everybody's looking for new markets. It's going to be very difficult to have a market that it's able to consume what the US currently consumes. But on every strategic table, there's a plan B and a plan C. And what he said is that even though a deal may come up, they're still going to move forward on these plans. So everybody's going to look for diversification. And this is going to be the new word in place, diversification. So as you know, there are a lot of new connections between Asia and Europe through rail, a lot of multimodal operations being built to have a closer connection between Asia and Europe. Africa is becoming a new player. A lot of investments, especially in ports, are being done in Africa. There's a huge consumption base that is very interesting for Asian manufacturers. Latin America is working very close with other Asian countries. You've heard about the new port in Peru. So there are a lot of things that are going on in logistics. And at the end, everybody was moving forward on these kind of projects. Now, after April, everybody's moving faster. So for us that play in the global world, this is very interesting because at the end, we're gonna have new opportunities to build new markets. The market is gonna get more fragmented. That's a second thing. That's not bad, especially for a logistics person, because 60% of business was between China and the US. Now everything is getting fragmented. So that's very interesting for us. So we are optimistic that with all these changes, new investment opportunities are going to come up, especially in ports, especially in diversified multimodal infrastructure. The big change, and that's something I see as an opportunity, especially for our company. I don't know if you have heard about the minimis change that just started a couple of weeks ago. And I was just reading that Congress is issuing a law draft. I can remember the name about specific name of the process, but they want to change the minimis on all countries, not just China. So as you know, the minimis right now is $800. Doesn't depend. It doesn't matter where the product comes from. Only China has a de minimis change. China, with the current pause, has a 30% duty on all non-USPS products coming through UPS, FedEx, DHL, whatever. And everything coming from USPS either has a 54% duty or a flat $100 duty. So every package coming from China needs to go through a regular customs clearance process. So this is a game changer, because before this administration, you can get anything from any place in the world. If it was less than $800, didn't need to go to customs and didn't need to pay any kind of duties. So a lot of companies grew to this de minimis process. Especially you have heard about Chain, Temu, all these Chinese companies, TikTok marketplaces, and all these companies shipping directly from China to the US consumer. There were airports and there were logistics companies buying planes just to move this e-commerce cargo from China into the US. So there was a lot of money being invested in China and being produced in China, and the US markets were not profiting from that. So that's the business part. The second topic, and which push this change, is that according to CBP statistics, 60% of the precursors, the chemicals used to make fentanyl, came from these specific packages, were shipped to the border with Mexico, and they crossed over into Mexico, being transformed into fentanyl, and then went back as fentanyl from Mexico to the US. So they're trying to block that part. Where is the opportunity here? With all these changes, all these products that were usually shipped directly via air or to parcel services like DHL, FedEx, are not going to be shipped through containers. They need to go through a very specific customs clearance process. Warehousing services are going to be required, and a final mile distribution is going to be needed in order to get the product to the consumer. So all of these companies are going to be US based. So the money is going to stay in the US. So at the end, it's not going to be a zero-sum game. Somebody's going to lose in these changes. But if we are flexible enough, we need to be able to move around the world and capitalize on these changes that are gonna be here for the coming years. Temu just opened, I think it was 2 million or 3 million square feet warehouse in California. I don't remember the place. I don't know if it was Oxnard or somewhere like that. So there are investments being done in the US to continue with this trade process. You've heard about Hyundai making investments in the US, closing some factories around the world. So the supply chain is being redesigned for a lot of industries. And I want to talk about where I personally see the future in supply chain and logistics. I worried
Oh, Jorge, just a
yeah.
quick couple things. I think you can remove the slide and stop sharing. We'd love to see you directly. And then just from a time check, we're to 34 after, so we have about 20 minutes. And so ideally, definitely share this view that you have of the future, and then we'll open it up for Q&A and discussion. Brilliant information so far. You've got really a comprehensive view of how it all comes together, and so thanks again for sharing today.
Glad to talk. I'm gonna move faster. So basically, what we're seeing it's globalization on the logistics point of view is not gonna stop. It's just gonna change, and we're gonna have clusters. For example, we see, and most of us are planning for a bigger integration between the US, Mexico, and Canada. As you know, there's a 25 tariff imposed in Mexican and Canadian products, but if they're USMCA compliance, there's no tariff. So what has happened during the past 30 plus years of free trade on products being manufactured in Mexico, only 51% of those products are in USMCA compliance. The rest depend on WTO trade agreements or preferable countries. So, for example, BMW gets most of their spare parts from Germany, from Asia. They build in Mexico and they export to the US, and they pay very small duty of 2, 3, 4, 5%. Same for some computer brands and stuff like that. So at the end, what the administration is looking is to force more production to be made with either US, Canadian, or Mexican products, materials. So looking forward, that should push into a bigger integration. It's commonly known and seen and now proof that a lot of investments from China came into Mexico, not as Chinese direct investments. They went through Mexican companies that were already established in the country and to continue exporting in the US, but using Chinese materials. So this is going to change. This is going to create a bigger integration between the three countries. The USMCA renegotiation was moved to the second semester of 2025. To be honest, I'm really happy about that, because to be waiting another year to see what's going to happen and decide on which investments you're going to do, it's a long time. So now we are ready to speed up some things, and that's what's going to happen in the near future in North America. For Latin America, it's a battleground between Asia and the US. Some countries are more keen to focus on the US, others to China, especially because they receive some investments. Brazil, which is a huge player, is still very neutral, but Peru and other countries in the Pacific are moving towards to China. So the decision it's still not made in the region, but trade with the US has continued. So this is gonna stay there. Regarding Europe, Spain and Portugal, it's very focused in Latin America, but for the rest of Europe, they're trying to grow markets in Africa. So there's gonna be an important connection there. And keep an eye on Middle East. The relationship with the Middle East is gonna be a very, very important piece of the coming years for logistics and for trade. I'm personally looking to see what I can do with the Emirates, with Saudi Arabia, with all these regions, because at the end they have a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of resources. So we need each other. So with the with the summit they had last week, that's, let's say, signed that collaboration between the Middle East and the US is gonna keep on growing. So we already started to visit Dubai last year, and there are a lot of opportunities there, and I really invite you to keep an eye on this. And especially Africa. Africa is gonna be very connected to Europe, but the US wants also to have a piece of the pie. And regarding Asia, Asia is getting more closer and closer together between the countries. So logistics wise, we see a big cluster being built because most Asian countries are islands by a logistic nature. They trade via containers. So there's going to be a huge opportunity in growth for ocean logistics between these countries. So we see three big clusters. North America starting, maybe some Latin America countries joining us to continue to expand manufacturing capacities to export to the US, Europe and Africa, and intra-Asia growth. And that will be for my side, Doc. I don't know if you guys have any questions, comments, and we can bounce around ideas.
No, brilliant information. Thank you. While we're waiting for questions, I see Mohammed YH Omar in the room from Iraq, and I'm wondering, are you
Yeah.
open to just saying hi? And your
Yes.
perspective of the world is very different, and I'm wondering how you see what you've heard here today, and any other things you'd like to add.
Yes. First of all, thanks for you and for Jorge for the great information. I enjoyed every minute of it. I would like to ask a question. Have you ever heard of the development road that are ongoing from Basra to Europe?
To be honest, this is the first time I heard of it. I've heard about the Kazakhstan routing to Asia.
Yeah,
And
but it's amazing. I am also surprised that the Iraqi government, there is a port in Basra called the Great Fao Port. If you just, it's a very big investment, and it's the new route from south of Iraq, and it will goes to Turkey, and from Turkey to Europe.
okay,
And this is amazingly, I also surprising. This project is going fast. I think the Chinese are sponsoring the port and the Koreans are building it. And well, what I understood from your presentation, that I think there is a shift in the logistics in near future. And I hope also we will keep in touch, and Iraq will be
sure.
a big route. Also, it's not Middle East is not just Dubai and Saudi Arabia, no problem. And also, one other question I would like to have your opinion. You mentioned the great the transport of the containers, and there is no from point A to point B. But you also mentioned about the TikTok store and Timo, and there is direct to consumer trend is going to maybe shift the classic logistic. I would like to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, basically, uh, when the minimis was approved by Congress, I think that was back in 2006, 2007, or maybe I'm wrong, but it has been around for 10, 12 years. The idea was basically, we don't want to put more CBP resources because that's gonna cost the government. Let's be more flexible and allow for all this packaging coming in from China or the world, but especially if China, to go through without any kind of constraint. They were focused on what was going to cost the government for that execution. So after that decision, e-commerce boomed. I don't have the updated number, but I understand that most I was something around 50 or 60% Amazon stores are directly managed from China. And in Latin America, there's an e-commerce marketplace called Mercado Libre, which 70% of their stores are managed directly from China. And actually, most of the logistics process and even the clearance process was managed from China. So there was no part of any logistics or warehouse or player in the whole logistics network. I met a logistics supplier 3 years ago. They were building their own airport. I think it was in Guangzhou. Well, it was in the south. They were building their own airport and they were buying their own planes to move cargo into LA, and from there do final mile distribution, not with FedEx, not with UPS, but with other kind of suppliers being also developed by them. So at the end, they were taking control of the whole supply chain. And with this shift, it's to clear 10,000, 15,000, 100,000 packages per day, it's impossible. So we're gonna shift back to the model previous to this de minimis change. And if Congress moves forward and approves the change for the rest of the world, is gonna get more constrained, because so far at the end, what could happen is that China can move the production from China to Vietnam and ship from there. But at the end, they are thinking three steps ahead, and they're gonna start closing these leaks on different countries. It's bad, yeah, because a lot of companies build their business model on this kind of way of doing business. But it's good because there also can be some opportunities, especially in the logistics sector, because e-commerce is not gonna go away. The consumer is still gonna require the products. So it's the way of serving the customer that is going to change.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mohammed Omar is based in, I believe, in Istanbul, but you're from Kirkuk originally, aren't you?
Yes, I am actually based in Ankara, in the center of Turkey, and I have 17-year experience. My logistic route is very short from Turkey to Iraq, but I also have been in China and imported also from China and other countries. So this is the exciting news when you see there is some kind of development is going, and finally, for the last couple of years, Iraq has been taking steps on the right direction. And the summit that you have mentioned, it was held in Baghdad, also Qatar, and they were getting together. So thank you a lot. If you are Doug, by the way, I thank you for your email. I have responded today, and looking forward for more meetings, and excited to be among you.
Thank you very much. Mohammed is a trusted resource via Rashid Kuskaya of the Turnkey B2B network. He's given Rashid has a couple Globinars on the opportunities in Turkey, and we're actually putting together a third one. And so Mohammed's been part of at least one of those, and it's been great to learn more. I'd like to now go to Sayali. Sayali, you're mentioning about Racklify as a hub. Did you have a question about that, or wanted to share it and maybe get Jorge's perspective? Or Sayali, are you available? I might have
Hi, Doug. Yes, I just was listening to this conversation and I thought I would share something from one of my network. If it is useful, I would be happy to make an introduction. So they're trying to get things online, creating a logistic hubs. He was talking about, the California wildfire, how the supply chain management completely broke, and how we can learn from these examples. And if people have a space and they would like to turn it into warehouse, where do they contact if people are looking for some physical locations to use them as warehouse, how we can connect, how the related other services. I heard George was talking about um, the freight shipments and related services, right? So they have different services which also has a technology side of it, which you can leverage in terms of for the shipment, for generating labels, making getting automations into logistics, which will help you to speed up the processes, and also mitigate some of the risk which otherwise may be seen in this industry. So this is a good platform, so feel free to explore. And in case anybody needs introduction, I'll be happy to connect you with the owner of this company.
Thank you. Jorge, does that company ring a bell? Are you familiar with them?
No, thanks, Ellie, for sharing. I haven't heard of them. I just put in on the chat room my emails and my direct cell phone, my contact cell phone. Glad to share and connect. As you know, logistics, it's about connections. So it's very common to work with other companies in other countries. We help and we get helped in other places. Even in the US, we have connections in other states. The US is a huge country, so we are always open to get to know new companies and new partners.
Fantastic.
Okay, sure. I can make an email introduction. Thank you for sharing your contact.
No, thank you.
We've got a couple more supply chain experts in the room. Tom Edholm and Alma Fuentes happened also to be based in Arizona. Do either of you like to weigh in? Any thoughts that you have based on what you've heard today, or anything else you'd like to add? We have about 5 to 8 minutes left.
I just wanted to thank Jorge. The information he provided is just super valuable. So really enjoyed the conversation. This is it's going to be an interesting rest of the year. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, Tom is a supply chain expert and help companies improve and make their supply chain more efficient. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Tom.
Alma, did you want to weigh in, or are you available to weigh in?
Yes, I'm happy to weigh in a little bit. I find it interesting to see how all the information about how we move things and how it's affected, how different situations affect the supply chain, and how we by not sending containers back to China, then that affects us coming back. Using those transit times that are very valuable when we're shipping overseas on a boat. So I'm interested to hear more, and I'll reach out to Jorge Alma Fuentes. I'm also from Sonora, or I am from Sonora. I don't know where you're from, but I am from there, and my parents live in Hermosillo. So I'll reach out to you, and we can discuss a little more.
Sure, Alma. Glad to connect. Always open. And I think we already met each other a couple of years ago.
Okay,
So,
well, maybe we have.
Yeah.
I'll reach out.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions before we wrap up? And hearing none, Jorge spends a lot of time in Phoenix, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of events tomorrow for Phoenix. One is with the Consul General and his title is Ambassador, from Kenya, and he'll be talking about Kenya opportunities, and he'll be in our office. Our office, Global Chambers headquarters office, is inside Thunderbird School of Global Management, and so we'll be meeting a delegation from Los Angeles who will be talking about opportunities in Kenya at 4 o'clock. So if anyone either here today or listening by video is available on Tuesday, May 20th at 4 o'clock, stop by the Global Chamber headquarters office and join us. And then earlier in the day, another Phoenix-based member, Rutherford Pascal, is kicking off an event like this one on logistics. That one will be on leadership in turbulent times. You know, the times are tricky right now and challenging, but also unprecedented opportunity, and technology is amazing. And so how do we, given that there are more opportunities than ever and technology is more advanced than ever, and maybe some of the challenges are more challenging than ever, how do we navigate as leaders? And so Rutherford's going to kick off that series. We already have another leadership series around health and wellness for leaders. That happens once a month. That one was a week or so ago, and then June and July, et cetera. So check in tomorrow on both of those. I don't see anyone else with any comments. And so do you mind, Jorge, perhaps wrapping up and making any final comments, anything else you'd like to note, or anything else you'd like to summarize?
Sure, glad to. Well, it is very important for everybody in global trade right now to be open to change. Change is a new permanent, so don't get frustrated. Change is gonna just speed up. So it's very important to adapt your processes to this kind of change. It's very important to find the right partner for your logistics services. Most of the companies out there in the logistics sector are gonna have problems because they're not adapting fast enough. So it's important when you select your partner to understand if they have the flexibility for change, because some of them have been doing shipments between China and the US for the past 20 years, business as usual, year over year. The things don't change, so they're getting frustrated and they're not providing the kind of service you guys require. So it's very important for you to understand and ask about what changes they have done in the past 4 to 6 months regarding everything that is going on. So you know they're going to be able to adapt to changes coming in the next 12 to 24 months. But it's getting fun. We need to see the glass full, not half empty, but half full. So that's the only thing I will say to close and wrap this up, Doc.
I'm glad you see it that way. I'm glad you're thriving. Great information today. Really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining this conversation. Watch for it on our YouTube channel. If you know people who are interested in global business, want to stay connected on a more holistic way, and also be part of a trusted network, the only trusted global business network in the world, that's Global Chamber. Please let them know, and we'd be happy to chat with them as well. Jorge, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Doc.
Have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Same for you.
Thanks, Jem. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.